Well, I mean, I think we should just go straight into the discussion to save time. And again, we are privileged to have Modele Sarafa-Yusuf here with me in the studio. Modele Sarafa-Yusuf is Africa's first female sportscaster, right? Am I right or wrong?
Correct.
Okay, correct me if I, okay.
Correct.
Okay, so Blessing Okagbare here, queen of the tracks, brilliant career, all of a sudden, you know, ending more or less in this manner, although the gentleman we had, Udora, our counsel, says no, this is not the end of the road, and it's not over yet. But of course, there is already a stain on that brilliant career. But over to you, you are the expert.
As you said, Ruben, there's already a stain on her career, unfortunately. But she has hinted, as you said, as her lawyer also hinted, that they will challenge the ban on until she has her day in courts, in the Court of Arbitration for Sports. We really should keep the judgment. She's been in the top echelon of sports for about 15 years, since about 2007. So she has done very well for herself. A sprinter's peak is between the ages of 23 and 30, the median being 26. So for her to have continued up to this level at 33, to still be competing at the top level is quite commendable, beyond the fact that she has done very well for herself and for the country, winning this many championships and medals. The fact that she is 33 also, who is nearing the end of her career, and naturally might explain the temptation to try something to aid performance. And as I said, that is not to say that this is what happened. We really don't know until she has her day in court. The world authorities say she's been caught doing something. They have looked at other extraneous circumstances. They've looked at her phones. They've seen her communicating. They say they've seen her communicating with someone who's being investigated for providing athletes with... That's
Dr. Eric Lira.
Yes, with drugs. So, you know, the evidence is very compelling. And the fact that she didn't cooperate is the reason that she got this big ban. Even if it was 4 years, even if she's given a 4-year ban or a 5-year ban, it would mean the end of her career, because by the time she comes back at 37, she wouldn't have been able to do much anyway. So I quite disagree with her lawyer, who says that this might not be the end of her career. If she gets the ban upturned, it might not be the end of her career. But if she comes back in 10 years' time, that's it, you know. And unfortunately, even if she wants to become a coach, there will be that cloud over her, and people may not entrust their awards to her. That said, doping is almost an epidemic in sport. And as the authorities try to stamp it out, athletes and those who enable them are always trying to get one step ahead of the authorities. It's so bad that about 30% of athletes have admitted in studies to have taken banned substances. Authorities believe it is close to 45%, even though only less than 1% have actually been caught and banned. You know, it is so bad that there's this thing in sport that's called the Goldman's dilemma. Goldman's dilemma. There was this publicist who conducted a survey among athletes and posed the question to them that if you were to use performance-enhancing drugs and you get to the top of your career, even at the risk of dying in 5 years' time, would you do it? 50% of them said they would do it.
For glory.
For glory. For glory, for the money. 50%, half of the people surveyed said they would do. So that is how bad it is in sports. And authorities have a good reason to continue to fight this menace, because apart from the giving unfair advantage to cheats, there are the health risks of performance-enhancing drugs. So it's also for their own benefit that they're saying don't take drugs. The exemplary effect of drug-free sports for the public, because, you know, when you're a big star, you have influence. And that influence, fame and fortune, confers on you the responsibility to be an example. So that's another reason why they're fighting the sport. And then again, drugs go against the very spirit of sport. And that's why I think that there's this big fight against drugs.
Well, Prof, your take on this?
You know, it is Chief Ebenezer Obey who said in one of his renditions that what is not good is not good.
Until Dauda.
Until Dauda. So in this case, anti-doping regulation is there. You cannot refuse to comply with a rule, with a regulation, with the law. So the moment you consciously, whether you are 30 years old, 10 years old, the moment you decided to take glory using fraudulent means, it is not simply your own image that you are tainting. The image of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the people of Nigeria, your own community, the stratum of society from which you have come out, you have spoiled the image. You have tainted the image. So if we are looking at it simply that, she has only damaged her own image, that is not true. In fact, her own image has not been damaged. It is the image of the good people of Nigeria that is at stake. Secondly, she is said to be 33 years old. And Modele has rightly pointed out that 33 plus 4 years, the normal period of sanction, she wouldn't be in a position to come back fittingly. And Modele tried to hypothesize that, well, to be able to keep herself fit and compete, probably she has to use drug, enhancing, to make a case. I think that the authorities are not much concerned about the infraction. But the mere fact that you, Blessing Okagbare, you have done X, Y, Z, which is not good, but you still have the effrontery not to cooperate. They now decided that, look, in this case, please, order is always vertical, top coming down, that they would descend. Even though the lawyer has given us a technical argument that, drug offense, the ban, 5 years, and then refusal to cooperate, 5 years, trying to give the impression that the 10 years given cannot but be as a result of the two offenses. I want to believe and argue strongly that, look, even with the two offenses, she could have been given a sort of mitigation. They can look kindly. But the issue is that she didn't cooperate, and at the end of the day, what she has done is not good. So please, that was why they want to ensure that permanently, whether she goes to the Court of Arbitration on sports or not, she cannot come back and still say she's going to participate. Finally, the lawyer said that the future can still be bright. And Modele rightly pointed out some of the points that even if she's going to be a coach, the problems may still be there. I think that there may not be an end to her future. You see, life like Jesus Christ told us in the Bible that man shall not live by bread alone. Athlete, running, sprinter can be a beginning, but not an end in itself. There are many things she can still do. With her knowledge, experience, she can, on her own, in a private setting, do more than she has done in the public.
And by the way, she has a master's degree from the Texas Tech University in the United States. So she's
Yes,
quite well
the future
educated, and she can
right,
still
yes.
do other things with herself.
Well, let's have the input of Professor David Aworawo on Blessing Okagbare and her travels. Professor Aworawo, good to see you. Please go ahead.
Well, the story of Blessing Okagbare, the doping issue and all that, is a tragedy in many respects. A tragedy because her case was like someone who went ahead to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. She would still have won so many things without drugs. And whoever advised her, whatever made her to go into drugs, well, her story is not that of triumph and tragedy. Triumph, she won so many things just prior to the Olympics. And then when Nigerians were expecting her to shine and make everybody smile, then tragedy struck. The lawyer spoke. Incidentally, the lawyer didn't say, oh, she was wrongly accused of doping and that she didn't take drugs. So that's why they are fighting to ensure that the ban is removed. They are only looking at technicalities here and there. And to my mind, just like Professor Akinterinwa said, the disgrace is not only for her, it's for all of us. And moving forward, yes, of course, the future one can always look for something else and move on with one's life. Life is about falling and getting up. Okagbare, I believe, is Urobo. The Urobo say they shake a breath. When you fall, you stand up and move on. But things would have been a lot better if she hadn't gone into drugs. Because if she were to go into, if she has the intention of going into coaching or any other thing, without that stain of drug, it will be a lot easier. With what she has done up till that Olympics, it will have just been, smooth. This death now would affect virtually every other thing she wants to do moving forward. So it's a lesson all of us must learn from. That going clean, being clean, moving clean, operating clean is the best way to go. There's no alternative to that. And so, well, we can only wish her well that she learns from the experience, she's able to pick up the pieces and move on with her life. But as for her career, of course, it's over. Even if they say 4 years, 5 years, at 33, 34, I mean, the career is over as far, and it isn't a sprinter, not any other, sports. So the career is over. But what she does after this is the other thing entirely. We can only wish her well, and of course, say all of us have lessons to learn from our travels.
Okay, Professor Aworawo, just stay with me. Don't go away yet. We started with the discussion of the 6th EU-AU summit, which took place, for 2 days, Friday, Saturday, over the weekend. And the commitment of the European Union to support the vaccine manufacturing process in Africa, and Nigeria now becoming the 6th country to produce COVID vaccines, and also Nigeria having been identified as the training hub, for the entire Africa. And we have Patrick Aja, Managing Director of May & Baker Nigeria. That company is also involved in a vaccine manufacturing initiative called BioVaccines. And I'd ask the question, do we have the political will? Do we have the, the capacity? And why is Nigeria so late to the party? And he addressed some of those issues. I'm sure you listened to him. Your take on some of his submissions, particularly the significance of some of the outcomes of the 6th EU-AU summit.
Yes, I did listen, and his perspectives were fascinating. He addressed many of the issues we know, and we hope that with people like him, people like us speaking, the government would choose to do what is right moving forward. The opportunity to include Nigeria is one we should grab with both hands and take full advantage of. For several reasons. One, it will help us to develop, expand capacity in vaccine manufacturing. It will help us develop human capacity in that respect. It will help us expand infrastructure in that area. And it will improve our health condition generally. And so it's an opportunity we should grab with both hands. And our advice to the government is that they should bring the best, not thinking of who is which party, who is where or what. They should assemble the best, and of course get the best equipment so that the training can be flawless. And of course, the involvement in the manufacturing can also be one that everybody will be proud of. There is a dimension, to all of these that the managing director of Mayor Baker, made reference to, and that has to do with patents. Yes, those companies who have spent so much in developing, of course, developing research and all that, reluctant, but of course, so that they don't they don't stick tenaciously to what the regulations say in this regard, which is what the WHO, has consistently said. We hope that there will be some shifting of grants, and of course, we'll be able to benefit maximally from that. But there is an aspect of it that when I reflect, I feel very sad. Virtually every country, Cuba without sanctions, managed to, develop a brand of vaccine. Africa, from Cape to Cairo, could not develop one, which is why we are looking for waiver on patent. We want to do fit and feel and all that.
Feel and
it is
finish.
Something that feel and finish. It is something that all of us should reflect on. Why are we so backward in terms of technological development? That all through that period that, everybody else developed something, we couldn't manage to develop anything. Well, that hasn't happened. We should seize the opportunity we now have to develop capacity and be part of the global process in vaccine development and vaccine manufacturing.
Okay, thank you, Professor Aworawo. Professor Akinterinwa, your take on this subject of vaccine equity, vaccine manufacturing, and Nigeria becoming part of the vaccine manufacturing hub in Africa.
You see, I look at the problem differently. Giving us the technology to produce vaccine is what? What does it mean? At the level of Nigeria, the problem that we can easily identify is how to reconcile existing expertise that abound here in Nigeria. And I'm very happy with Patrick Kaja, the chief executive of May and Baker, who told us that, look, we do have professionals in Nigeria, that these professionals had been engaged in the production of different vaccines in the past. In this case, expertise of the Nigerian people. And what Dr. Abati indirectly raised in his question when he talked about the challenges, the domestic challenges. How do you reconcile giving us the technology with the challenge of environmental conditioning on the ground? The environment is not favorable to all this research and development. What, from the experience of COVID-19 already, we have developed a fraudulent attitudinal disposition to it, to the extent that the whole world, you come with your own vaccine certificate, they doubt it. You see, they know that, look, you must have done something wrong. Now, our governance in itself, in various ramifications, the trust is not there. The trust is not there. Nigerians trust the expertise of Nigerian professionals. But the issue is that the environment does not allow and is not likely to allow the technology to be given, all right, to be faithfully done. You see, we have 6 countries competing now. We may end up discovering that Nigeria's vaccine may be the poorest in terms of quality because the environment would not have enabled the professionals, the experts. We have them, the virologists, they are there. Vaccine intellectuals, they are there. So, if the environment, even with political will, and unless the political will we want to address the challenges of the environment, it is then that our intellectuals, the eggheads, with their sagacious minds, will be in a position to come out and use the technology to be given. As a matter of fact, what I agree with Aja, he said that change of administration doesn't mean and should not mean change in trajectory, to borrow his words. So we are faced with a situation whereby the environment has to be made conducive. Research and development is funding. But now we have, they call them panel beater. Panel beater, you panel beat. Instead of replacing give correct something, you panel beat. Now, what they do in the public service, they give you a budget, say go and manage. They know quite well that the money will not be enough, they say go and manage. Is that how you want to come with vaccine? But whatever is the case, I am of the school of thought that please, give the Nigerian the opportunity. Whether you want to give us technology or not, I don't give it a damn. Nigerians can evolve their own technology. Why must you follow and accept the technology of other countries?
Okay, Modele, quickly, so that we can move on to other subjects.
Well, the fact that Nigeria is one of 6 countries out of the 54 in Africa that have been given the opportunity to do this means that people believe that we have the capability.
That's the trust in the professionals.
We have the capability, yes. The professionals are up to the task. And so for me, that's a plus. But beyond this issue of vaccine production and the technology transfer, which will facilitate the issue of vaccination hesitancy is even more important for me. I see that the health ministry is actively promoting the vaccines and encouraging people to take them, the encouraging uptake, but the numbers are still very poor. Because what's the point when we start producing vaccines and people refuse to take them? As at this weekend, Nigeria has administered only about 21 million doses of the vaccine, of the COVID vaccine, at 2 doses per person. That's about 10 million people. If people like us who have taken 3 vaccines are to be factored in, then maybe less than 10 million people are fully vaccinated. That's about 5% of the population. Remember that we have to get to 70% before we can achieve herd immunity. Well, we're lucky that the number of deaths and hospitalization remain low, but people need to get vaccinated to thwart mutation of the virus, because we don't know the variant that will give us the big problems. Already, we hear that Omicron has a subvariant, which means that there's still...
We want to.
Yeah, there's still problems on the horizon, so people should trust the science and get vaccinated.
Well, thank you very much. On that note, Modele, Prof, the 2 professors, we'll take a short break now. And when we return, this is a live, the Sunday talk show. We'll continue. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the ARISE News channel. With me in the studio, I still have Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General of Bolytag Centre for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, veteran broadcaster, marketing communications consultant, and ARISE News Analyst. Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office of, and Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. In less than 1 year, the first vote will be cast as Nigerians go to the polls to determine their next president after the expiration of the tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari. At the moment, what started as mere statements of intention have gradually opened up into a race, with many figures of interest across the country throwing their hearts in the ring, and the roll call is as interesting as they come. National leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, perhaps being the most high profile of those who want to run for the highest political office in the land. But the sticking point, just as in the build-up to the last general election in 2019, seems to be the apparent reluctance of President Muhammadu Buhari to expedite action on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which has been acted upon by both chambers of the National Assembly and transmitted to the President for his assent. In the meantime, Nigeria's ruling political party, the All Progressives Congress, has continued to toy with the idea of postponing by 2 weeks its national convention, which was initially scheduled for February the 26th. Now, this is a subject before us, and I would like to start with Yemi Adamolekun. The re-amended Electoral Act Amended Bill was transmitted to the President for his assent on January the 31st. Now, given the provisions of Section 85 of the Constitution, he has up till March the 2nd to sign that bill. But nobody has had anything. But the tricky point there is that according to the Electoral Act, the INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission, needs about 365 days to the timetable that it has provided to provide guidelines for the election. And that would begin to count from February the 22nd. So if the president does not sign the bill by February the 22nd, many civil society organizations are saying that INEC may have to revise the timetable for the election. In other words, shift the elections a bit further. What do you think is really going on? Because people are worried that the election may in fact be postponed. And why is the president taking so long to sign that re-amended electoral bill, considering the fact that most of the concerns that he expressed, his major concern, has been addressed by the National Assembly. Yemi, over to you.
Indeed, thank you. So his main concern was about the mode of primaries. The original electoral bill had only direct primaries. And as we've discussed on the show, the idea was that direct primaries improves our democracy. Every political party then has to make its members known. Then that gives members some agency about what is going on with their parties. But what we've seen, interestingly within the APC, is how direct primaries can be abused. President Muhammadu Buhari was elected based on direct primary, but the total number of people within APC that voted for him was a lot more than the total number of people within the country that voted for him. It makes you wonder. We saw it as well in Lagos. The total number of people that voted for Governor Sanwo-Olu for direct primaries was a lot more than the total number of people that voted in the elections in Lagos. Again, lastly, for Anambra, we saw that again in November for Andiuba. So direct primaries has its own challenges. And when President Buhari wrote back to the National Assembly, he said that he wanted Nigerians to have choice, so that it couldn't only be direct primaries. They should also have the option of indirect primaries, which just means delegates get to choose. In an interview he then had with channels, I believe earlier this year, he also added consensus candidates. So what the National Assembly did was they put a clause to include indirect primaries, consensus candidates, but qualified it that for a consensus candidate, all the aspirants must agree, just as a way not to remove agency from them. Now, what has then happened, though, which is now what is causing all the contention with the bill, is the fact that an additional clause, which wasn't there before, has now been added. I believe that's clause 85, if I'm not mistaken. But the general gist in layman's terms, it basically says that if you're a political appointee, i.e. a minister or any other political appointee, if you want to run for office, you must resign before you participate in the primaries. So you cannot be voted for in a primary or vote for somebody, so you cannot participate in the process, is basically what the clause says. So it's that contention that has now sort of paused, because for any minister that wants to run, it doesn't favor them. So we understand the challenge therein. However, as you have mentioned, the act or the bill says that a notice of election must come no later than 360 days before the date of an election. INEC has already announced February 18, 2023 and March 4th, 2023 as our election dates for next year. So if you walk it backwards, 360 days gives you Tuesday, February 22nd of this year. So Tuesday, in 2 days. Therefore, if President Buhari doesn't sign by February 22nd, we will have to move our election dates next year. It's not a maybe, because by law, we will then have to move it because we need 360 days. Now, the electoral, and this is, we've lost a lot of the, maybe not innovations or benefits of the bill in focusing on direct primaries or the mode of primaries. I'd like to highlight 3 things that I think is fantastic, and while this bill is probably one of the better pieces of legislature we've had for our electoral process. Number 1, it allows INEC to get its money early. I believe up to a year early, so they can plan better and there are no excuses with procurement, we didn't get money in time, blah-de-dee, blah-de-blah. Number 2, it takes out the fact that once election results are declared, it can only be contested in court. So if someone gets a gun put to their head and they declare false elections, what happens now is that the election stands and it then has to be challenged in court. But this new bill says no. INEC then has the powers to say that it was declared under duress. Then we need to review the election results and it's not held fast. So what we are saying as civil society organizations and active citizens is that President Buhari should go ahead and sign the bill as is so we can continue with our election calendar. Because right now, ASU is on strike, there's fuel scarcity, the country is hot. We don't want to now say we are postponing elections. It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. So if he signs the bill as is, he can then send an amendment to the National Assembly for them to take out whatever clause is a challenge. He did it with the Petroleum Industry Bill, and he's done it with the Appropriation Act. And we hope he chooses to do that tomorrow when he's back in his office.
Okay, thank you, Yemi. Professor David Aworawo, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, and the President not yet, given his assent. Plus all the other issues, the presidential aspirants that have shown up, more are showing up on a daily basis. This thing is so bad,
it's echoing. That's why I was...
Okay, please go ahead, Professor Aworawo.
When the rain comes,
do you have any favorites?
They are also infrastructure.
Hello, Professor Aworawo, can you hear me?
Like in some of the...
Me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, it is disheartening that we have spent so much time on this electoral amendment bill. Why are we spending so much time on one bill? It is disheartening. I was thinking that as soon as this bill is submitted, to the president or the presidency, the thing will be signed and then we'll move on. That we are still debating this late is really, really disheartening. There are certain elements that one is beginning to reflect on now. That one, it will appear as if people in National Assembly don't want this bill to see light of day, so that the usual practice of writing results and all that can go on, which is why they are inserting things that will make it, will make things controversial and all. Why did they go ahead to start inserting fresh things in a bill that they already submitted to the presidency? The presidency said, please adjust this. Why insert fresh things? I can't make sense of it. Then the other side, as it has now gone to the presidency, why not sign and then, whatever amendments that are required can then be done later, considering the importance of that and the importance to that process. It is decided. I'm not assuming the Monday president. In fact, it seems to me that this bill will not be signed, and there will be a whole lot of controversy that will trail it moving forward, which will not be good for the polity, which is already, heated, even overheated. So, but let us continue to be optimistic and hope that when the president comes to the office tomorrow, he will sign the bill, it becomes law, and then INEC can then move on, so that the issue of postponing election and all that, will not arise, which will cause its own controversy again, and then problems upon problems and layers of problems can then be avoided when that happens. We hope that reason will prevail, and then good judgment will reign supreme, such that the bill is signed tomorrow, and then it becomes law, and then all the good things we have highlighted over and over again in the amended act can then be implemented by INEC. Then regarding candidates, well, it is fascinating. Those who have come out to indicate show their interest in contesting. Like you said, Asiwaju's interest, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's interest, you see, clearly is the front runner, but of course, there is the vice president Asiwaju's factor there. That is one thing they have to go and sort out one way or the other, because both of them obviously will not contest or will not want to contest, and so they have to sort that out. We have had people say, Vice President Asiwaju should even come out and support Asiwaju and then even become his campaign manager and all that. But the Vice President is quiet so far, and those very close to him that we know say, the Vice President is interested. So that has to be sorted out. But beyond that, there are several others. It doesn't have to be these well-known names. We have technocrats, we have people who have knowledge, who are just there, who are not, in the mainstream of the names that I mentioned. What stops Akinwumi Adesina from coming to become Nigeria's president? And the other technocrats here and there. Mo Ghalu is still there, and all the other young, very vibrant, very knowledgeable Nigerians. So it's fascinating that so many people are coming out to indicate interest. But moving forward, what Nigerians must, as they say, to use our parlance, shine their eyes this time around. Mm-hmm. We have to look at what the person has been until now to know who to settle for. That would, that will be able to. There's so much to do, to put Nigeria where it ought to be. And only someone who has the commitment, who has the passion, will be adequate, to take over in 2023. Okay,
Professor Akinterinwa, your take on this. The aspirants, your favorites, and also the delay over the re-amended electoral bill.
Let me put Professor Aworawo's concern in a reformed interrogation. He did ask, why the delay? What makes it difficult for Mr. President to dot the I's all along and sign? I agree with the question, but I want to put the question, rephrase it this way. What makes it difficult for the President of Nigeria, immediately he receives the bill, to act expeditiously, rather than always wanting to act at the tail end? Because that is where the delay is. Yemi, alias Enough is Enough, gave one possible reason to the delay. He told us that the legislature introduced a new dimension, which is the issue of political appointees having to resign, before eligibility to contest. But you see, the problem is not always as we see it. First of all, on the issue of many candidates, there is a principle called le désistement in France. If you have many candidates, all right, they do so in Nigeria to show relevance, knowing fully well that they are not likely to succeed. But whoever succeeds thereafter will have the opportunity to reckon with them as contestants. But le désistement in France is a situation, is a process whereby the less favorable candidate withdraws for the better candidate in the party. So when you have 2, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 candidates contesting, those who are not likely to make any major leap forward, they withdraw. That is why we have this many candidates. For me, look, Osinbajo, Tinubu, all these candidates, they know quite well Osinbajo is most likely, for instance, to ask his supporters to vote for Tinubu, were the two of them to be considered. That's one strategy. For me, I would prefer that Southeast, the Igbo Hanese that had not been given any opportunity, be given that fairness to present a candidate. Finally, I think that the situation of the electoral bill as it is, if Mr. President refuses to sign it, then he will have scored the highest point of failure for his own administration, because it's becoming an unbecoming a situation whereby he doesn't bother about what concerns public interest. This one is in the public interest, and he does not have any reason. The arrière-pensée, and I conclude on that one, the reasons normally given openly are different from what they call arrière-pensée, the hidden agenda. I think that the APC has an agenda to rig election. Anything that will not allow them to rig, they ensure that it doesn't work. It's as simple as that.
Okay, Modele, your turn on this subject.
It does seem to me that this issue is between only the legislators and the president. Where are the people in all this? They've been reduced to a point where they say, okay, just sign. Anything, just sign. You know, their views are at best considered in the passing, because clearly the legislators came up with something and sent it to the president. The president, well, as head of government and the leader of the country, based on advice, we're told, says this issue should be taken out, or this issue should be looked at again. So the legislators will go back and look at it again and then insert something else, which they didn't think about all of the months and the years that they've been looking at the Electoral Act. They just thought about that, which means it's an afterthought, or it's just mischief, because we really don't know what they're up to. But for the people just seem resigned. We're not really hearing their voices as loud. They're just at the point, like people like Yemi and everybody say, okay, let's just sign. Let them just sign, and then we can go back. That is something that we need to think about. As for the candidates, we're just talking about Asiwaju and the Vice President of Osinbajo. There are other people. There's Atiku Abubakar. There's Payo Sanyim. There's Rotimi Amechi. There are other fringe candidates. In these elections, what I know, that the race doesn't always go to the swiftest. So we'll still see some surprises.
Although some of those persons you have mentioned, they've not categorically declared interest.
They've not categorically
It's
declared
other people
interest.
that are pushing them,
Well,
forcing them, threatening to sue them to court. If they,
and some other people are being positioned
strategy.
like
It's political strategy.
The governor of the central bank is also being positioned by other
No, being pushed.
They're being
but
pushed
he has said he's not interested.
and being goaded and being persuaded. So, you know, I say that there are many candidates.
That is always the beginning of political campaigns. Not
The
my
question
will,
is
not
that the
my-
best? Is that the best practice elsewhere?
Well,
I mean, should we continue to have presidential aspirants
who are goaded,
who are pushed, who are forced, who are threatened? In other parts of the world, people come forward to provide leadership.
Absolutely.
Because they are ready.
Absolutely.
And because they think they have
They
what
have
it
something
It
takes.
doesn't
to
mean that
provide,
the style
yes.
in Europe, in the US, in China is best. You see, what is beautiful is to be original in your own strategy, in your strategic
No,
calculations.
we don't want reluctant leaders. We want people
not
who are
that they are
interested.
reluctant. Not that they are reluctant.
Okay.
You see, the issue is that you have a spokesperson. People are acting for you. You test the ground. Consultation itself is not going
So
to
they
meet-
say, so they're testing the ground.
Of course.
Okay, we need to move on. I have another topic that I have to take. Nigeria's anti-drug agency this past week arrested Abba Kyari, a highly decorated police officer. Mr. Kyari, who was already suspended for allegedly helping the self-avowed fraudster, Hush Puppy, launder his money, is now accused in a cocaine trafficking plot. Well, that's quite straightforward. That has been a big story all through the week that just ended. Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, let me start with you. The issues are, one, the reflection on the image of the police, the country, and also Abba Kyari's career himself. Super cop, who has become a cop puppy. Or to quote in the course of the week, Professor Kemi Rotimi, who appeared on the morning show, he said he has become a super criminal. Although nobody should convict anybody on television, every accused person is innocent until proven guilty. Okay? So, and then there's that other issue about extradition. Extradition Treaty of 1931, the Enabling Act of 1935, and the Extradition Act of Nigeria of 1966, and then the process of extradition. What do you think?
The first thing that came to my mind when I heard the NDLEA statement was how are the mighty falling? He went from hero to zero in about 6 months, and he fell so badly. He fell in such an ignominious way. It's mind-boggling. From what we hear, Abba Kyari seems to be a good cop by day and a criminal by night. And what came to my mind is, could this be a case of what psychologists call a split personality, a split personality disorder, or what they've also called multiple personality disorder? You know, it's a mental disorder where a person has two or more distinct personalities, and the thoughts, actions, and behaviors of each personality may be completely different. I'm just, trying to psychoanalyze him, because this is what he wasn't just an ordinary policeman. He's perhaps the most decorated policeman in the history of the Nigerian police force.
The House of Reps gave him a standing ovation.
Unprecedented.
In 2020.
Unprecedented. And he's done so much for himself and for the image of the police force. And he was actually being looked upon as a potential Inspector General. And then first, there was that thing about Hush Puppy. He was clearly hobnobbing with shadowy figures. And then he went from there to do this drug thing and given his experience, he fell into a trap that is almost obvious. You know what I'm saying? For a police officer, if it was a common criminal, you can say he might not know that this is possible. But he was to be emboldened up to the level where he actually got caught almost red-handed. Tells me that there's something wrong psychologically. Kyari was clearly running with the hare and hunting with the hounds. And it's incredible, but not unheard of. It's apparently quite common in the world of law enforcement. Remember George Iyamo, and the 4 policemen that were killed, along with Aneni, that celebrated Lawrence Aneni in the 1980s. 1980s, was it 80s
yes.
or 90s? Yes, 1980s. And then we also remember the kidnapper Wadume, who was captured in Taraba State not so long ago. He was actually being helped by soldiers,
yeah.
who actually killed policemen and set him free when he was initially caught. Before he was caught by Kyari, incidentally, by Kyari and his team. Incidentally, they were the ones who finally caught this Wadume. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around what may have happened with this man.
There are examples of rogue policemen in the UK too.
There are rogue policemen everywhere. There are rogue policemen. There have always been reprobates within the law enforcement agencies who would readily swap their allegiance to the good for ill-gotten gain, and they will align with criminals. Remember that the IG, in his statement on Abba Kyari, also pointed fingers at some NDLA officials who at the airport, who he said have actually allowed this drug to pass without detection, past airport screening. So there are always bad eggs in all law enforcement agencies. While Kyari was, what bothered me even more than all this was that while Kyari was conducting these operations, he was on suspension from the Nigeria Police Force, but he was still leading operations and doing things. It's that kind of loyalty, and we were told that his boys alerted him to this drug bust, to this drug thing. There's that kind of loyalty from people he was leading. It's also very frightening. You know, they know he was on suspension, but he was still their leader in their minds. It's what they call a subculture. A subculture is a group of individuals within a culture that shares the same attitudes. Police officers within a department tend to share the same norms and behaviors. And I think this is what prompted the Inspector General of Police to disband this unit that was headed by Kyari after his arrest. They're probably beyond redemption. And maybe the police high command think that if they're dispersed and absorbed into different other units, they can internalize the subcultures of some other units. That said, though, we tend to overlook the emotional trauma that law enforcement agents suffer, which may account for some of this behavior. How is society and the authorities helping them to deal with these kinds of things? They see the kind of things that they see, the kind of things that they hear, the kind of issues that they're exposed to. How does it affect their mental well-being? And how is society helping them to deal with this? And the conditions of service as well. These things do not excuse bad behavior, but sometimes they explain it.
Okay, Professor Akinterinwa, your turn. Before I go to Professor
I do
Aworawo.
not want to disagree with you on some points, but you see, Kyari's case clearly shows how deep-seated institutional corruption is in Nigeria. It's a good illustration. The first point there, it is not just during the suspension of Kyari that he engaged in it. It's simply because they didn't talk about it, because the police force was trying to cover up. All right? So what happened is that the allegation is that he's running a cartel that moves from either Brazil to Ethiopia to Nigeria, all those things. How did they do this?
No, the allegation is not that he's running the cartel, that he's working hand in gloves with them.
Well, look,
or with drug.
The concept, the notion of running may imply that he's the head, is the owner. But running in this particular case, that he's deeply involved in it. Because the peddlers, the drug barons, what they do, the report has it that they send photographs well in advance to the people who will be on duty before their arrival. So this one, my brother Kyari is aware, they know. So when these people come, they have seen the photograph, so they don't need to check them. They pass and they go away. This is the issue.
That was the NDLA. Yes. That's the NDLA angle. Because they're the ones who pass people.
The policemen now have also asked the NDLA, well, the collaborators are also in your own system.
Correct.
Look at them. So when a thief is accusing another thief, there's a problem. I think that the danger at the level of both the Nigerian police force and the NDLA is this, and that will be linked up with the question of extradition. If the NDLA in its own inquiry makes the mistake of allowing subjectivity of purpose to inform their investigation, they should not forget that they will be going, Kyari may be extradited to the US. Not a situation where we had a governor taken to court for public embezzlement. He was cleared. But taken to the United Kingdom, he was found guilty. Our image is at stake.
Okay, Prof, I know the fact that you said Abba Kyari is your brother. So that's a big takeaway for
Yeah, because it's my
everybody-
brother.
Yes, you said your brother.
It's my brother, it's a compatriot.
Yes, okay, very good.
My compatriot.
Professor Aworawo, the last word on this before we close the program.
Well, this is another story of triumph and tragedy. Well, Abba Kyari, as we know, all the decorations, Super Cup, and the rest of them, and see where we are. It's unfortunate that this kind of thing has to happen, and some of the dimensions are easily understandable. Like Professor Akinterinwa has said, it speaks to the institutionalization of corruption and this kind of, acts. In not just the police, in the police and many other public institutions in Nigeria. And so we should see Abba Kyari as a metaphor for the general nature of institutions across Nigeria. And so if we are going to sanitize, it's going to be something that will be comprehensive and extensive. As to why he did some of the things he did, Modele tried to examine some theories of sociology and psychology, and she wonders how he couldn't have known that some of these things would put him in trouble. There are also theories, sociology and psychology that state that when an individual is committing a crime and getting away with it, he tends to be reckless moving forward. And that was what happened to Abba Kyari. And if you look at the other dimension to it, there was a panel that examined Abba Kyari and didn't quite find him culpable. They only said how he used social media and so he should be demoted one rank and all that. The substance of the matter was not didn't reflect in that report. So Abba Kyari may have also thought that, well, nothing will happen to him. He will be given a slap in the wrist. All of these will have, accounted for why some of the things he did. But it's a tragedy of immense proportion. It's also what all of us should learn from, that somebody who occupies such a high position could go on a toboggan slide so quickly, and now that's at the level he is now. It's something that all of us must learn from. To be content, greed certainly is part of it. It's not just a case of whether somebody has multiple personalities. Greed is at the center of this, and lack of contentment. And of course, that also accounts for why, even when he's under suspension, he continued, But just like Dr. Badi, just as you said, he's presumed innocent until a court of law finds him guilty. So we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor David Aworawo, Professor Akinterinwa, and Modele Sarafa-Yusuf. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on ARISE News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Sunday.